Welcome to episode 72 of the XrmToolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with fellow MVP Carl Cookson about his new tool, the BPF To Visio Builder. We also tackle questions like, do former devs need to keep up their dev chops? If you are an expert dev, does that make you an expert dev manager as well? And struggling with the issue of trying to keep documentation up to date and how not fun that is. If you ever need to be able to document your BPFs very quickly, this is definitely the show for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the XrmToolcast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and Scott, my head may be in Canada, but my heart is in the UK to row. Scott, how's it going?
Yeah. Very good, Daryl. Yeah, my heart. Yeah, I left my heart in London. Is that right? No, is that a song? No.
No, it's not quite San Francisco. Probably getting out to work with the lyrics would be difficult, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think was they say the home is where the heart is. So
heart is, yeah.
But then. Yeah, no, I see where I am here with my family as my home. So yeah, I think my heart is firmly, well and truly in the same room as my physical body, which is probably the right place for it to be.
All right. I know you and our guest were giving some talking about some of the happenings and going on back in the UK. So
yeah, well, I read the BBC News and keep in touch, so it's always nice to with our guest today.
Maybe you have it backwards. Maybe your heart's in Canada, but your mind's in, who knows? Anyway, our guest today is another repeat guest here, Carl Cookson. He is supposedly ex developer with a passion for linking disparate apps. A Power Platform geek, Microsoft MVP, and a pre-sales director at Capgemini. His thoughts are his own. Welcome, Carl.
You can read Twitter. Well done, Daryl.
That's what I do. I've started.
He always does that.
This is how I improve. This is how my next step was to read off the people's Twitter profile.
That's your research level.
Well, like desperate apps sounds quite good. I mean, I think desperate apps is, that's almost like a sort of a brand name for something, isn't it? It's desperate like, apps. Yeah.
That could be a next T-shirt idea, Scotty. Desperate apps.
Desperate apps, yeah.
Would be a playoff like Desperate Housewives? Too? I don't.
Probably a stretch, but but it's funny. It's funny, Carl. You say an ex-developer, right? But clearly, this hasn't made its way through to your thoughts that are indeed your own, because you seem to be doing a lot of developing lately.
well, only in my downtime, right? So my PowerPoint jockey, like probably both of you, is solution designing, etc. So doing any sort of hands-on development is not during my day job, and I use things like the XrmToolBox tools to do something on a weekend that's not walking the dog or driving my wife mad, really. So I keep myself up and lock in a room and do some C#. So yeah, that's where I am at with that. And my day job is definitely not development anymore.
Do you think that keeping your oar in, I don't know what the phrase is there, keeping up to date with development and everything is necessary to do your day job? I mean, do you think that having an understanding of all of the bits and bytes that are going on under the covers is needed in order to make sure that you pick the right solution design at that higher level?
Definitely. I think to a degree, I think you've got to look at the whole breadth of it, certainly in the solutions that I normally work with across the Azure stack as well as the Power Platform in general. So it's understanding the whole concept of what's available where. So understanding it, whether I could write an Azure function or something similar straight off the bat without Googling it lots, I don't think so. But understanding what's the art of the possible, I think, is where I need to be in my role as a solution architect.
And so the art of the possible means tinkering around and doing a bit of, give this a go, see if that works. It doesn't work, but not necessarily coming up with some sort of solution that's going to be going to production and stuff like that. But and it's interesting. I mean, it's something I struggle with all the time. Is knowing how far do you need to be able to push yourself to get to that understanding that you're talking about. I mean, employers, I mean, it's a difficult one for employers as well, because if they employ you as somebody to do a solution design, then they don't necessarily wanting to be employing you to do, tinkering around, because then that might be seen as something that's like, well, but is it a waste of time? Is it? But because what you're saying is it's necessary to do the other job, right?
Certainly an understanding is necessary. And I think you just get to a level, don't you? You get experience in that certain things and you know how to do it. You don't probably have to Google to go and do it properly and to understand it, but the pain that you went through when you first came across that, or experience on projects to really understand what you should be doing. And it is what your day job is versus what you're interested in as well. So I'm very much more interested in tinkering, like you say, and improving things in my off time than I am on my on time, where I'm more focused on the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I always find it interesting with this idea that if you're a really good dev and you keep on working, getting more and more technical, and more years of experience, at some point you just need to transition over to management and to not be dev anymore. And that the people that are really good developers are therefore really good managers of developers or other things. And it's just like, why do we think that actually correlates? Or why do we think that actually means something? I mean, I know as a developer, it's always helpful to have a manager that knows code. But just they don't have to be a really good developer to be a really good manager. It's the same thing in American football. You may have someone that's the Tom Brady, the Peyton Manning, the amazing quarterback, the MVP, whatever. He may be a horrible coach. It may be the backup quarterback that never played at all. That's actually a much better coach because they're different. They're completely different skills.
American football, that's not something that just got an eye on the plan, surely.
You've picked the wrong sport, Daryl.
Jonas will be back like sometime, who knows, but he'll be back, and we'll be able to right the wrongs that have just been said at this podcast.
Yeah, can we have some cricket analogies, Daryl? I mean, this is.
Oh, I don't know. We're supposed to do. My wife is in charge of field games at our school, where like they're supposed to be based off of. I think this is based off of games around the world, and so we're trying to get like a cricket bat and ball and try to figure out how do we actually play it. And yeah, we have no idea. Like it's like baseball, but it's not. So,
but whenever I mention hockey, that you can't say that cricket is like baseball. I mean, sorry, I have.
There's a bat and a ball. I mean, what other sports have bats in them? I don't know. Like, I guess it's a paddle, right? Rather than a bat. Is it called a paddle? Is that like the legit name for it? Like, this shows my complete. I hate the first day of baseball, the first opening day of baseball. I've had enough baseball for the year. I don't need any more baseball. I am not a baseball fan, so. The fact that a quote unquote America's game I care nothing for doesn't give me any hope for something that is like.
I'm just hoping you don't have that many Indian followers on your podcast, because they will be up in arms at this moment.
We should move on. The fact that you're talking about a paddle rather than a bat, we should just move on now.
Okay. Right.
But I talk about hockey over here. I want to refer to hockey as I played hockey in the UK, and everyone corrects me and they say field hockey.
Yes,
it's like no, it's hockey. No, field hockey. That is not hockey. That is field hockey, which is a different game. But going back to your point, though, Daryl, absolutely, and I think it's a struggle, isn't it? You have to decide, professionally, do you want to kind of make that move? You may be pushed into that move and into the kind of move of the more of the management or the more of the solution, but maybe you don't want to. But then can you stay? Can people stay being a developer, a hardcore developer, for their entire life?
And it's tricky to give them a career path that allows them to go past that level, because they get to that point where they don't want to go into pre-sales or sales or management, what do? Because you can't farm them out at the same rates as those other people. From a pure consultancy point of view, you've got to give them that CTO role or something similar where they can really evangelize and get into the nitty gritty of things. But it's very tricky for certainly a consultancy to give everyone the scope across those things.
I think I just thought of this. Like, a developer will get so good at some point in time that they become so efficient that they aren't worth being built out anymore, right? Like, that's kind of what it could be. If you're looking, if you care nothing about, like, getting a good job done or getting a great job or having a happy customer, if you're just worried about making money as a company, then it's very easy to get to the point where, oh, well, this person can do it twice as fast. Even though we charge them 20% more, we don't want that guy because we want the guy that takes twice as long because we can charge more for that guy. So yeah, that is, and I run into that too. When what's your billable rate when I have these like side projects? I'm like, well, just keep in mind that if I'm not doing this twice as fast as this person, then something's wrong. Like, then you don't want me, and that's great, and I shouldn't be doing that. But if I can, then yeah, I shouldn't be penalized for being more efficient and having more experience. Which is kind of a weird conversation to have, but that just you called that out to me there, Carl. I appreciate that. So, let's transition to the actual tool. Not that this is not incredibly interesting. This may be the most popular episode ever, just because of this first 10 minutes. But this is the Toolcast, so let's focus on that. So, Carl has a new tool here for the XrmToolBox, and it's the BPF To Visio. Is that the name? Is that the official name of it, or is that I'm not quite wrong? It's the BPF To Visio Builder. Okay. I had to give the intro for last. Yeah, I had to get the intro for last week's episode, and it's just BPF to PCF or PCF to BPF. There's no like builder or anything else. It just sounded weird. So the fact that you have builder in there just makes I know I'm going to appreciate that when I give the show intro, the BPF to Visio Builder, rather than about his new tool, the BPF to Visio. Yeah, so I appreciate the builder to that. So the BPF to Visio Builder. So talk us through what this tool is.
Well, just exactly that, really. Business process flows that everyone that's been brought up with Dynamics 365 or Power Platform model apps effectively use on every project virtually, I would imagine, to pitch the user through a series of activities that they need to complete and fill out and guide them through a process. And that's been in Dynamics for, Scott will say it's been in, I don't know what version, but it's been in there forever. And Mark Christie of Scottish Summit fame basically requested this once I released my previous tool, because he was the one that was asking for more documentation, things to document. So that's basically the backstory, and what it does is exactly that is what it says. It converts that BPF into a Visio diagram, which you then can tweak and tailor and document what you've done. Mainly because the consultant in me, the functional consultant, the tool set I've got effectively is down to making my life easier. So whether it's producing ERD or documenting flows or BPFs, it's getting that stuff out onto a page where I can say, yeah, this is what we've done. This is a point in time where we've done it. And this is what we delivered. And it's one of those things that you get asked to do time and time again, to document something that you've delivered that is not to someone that is not a fay with the tool set themselves. So anyone that's not a Power Platform expert and knows how to get at these things through the relevant tools can look at a Visio, and it can then go into whatever else diagrams you've got to document everything else.
Okay, so really this is just a easier, quicker way of documenting for everyone what the actual BPF is designed as. Like, because there is kind of a little WYSIWYG sort of thing, but like if you wanted to go in and like print off 20 of them, that'd be a pain in the keister, right? Because you have to open each one, wait for it to load, take a screenshot of it or something like that, and this gives you a way to go boom, 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 done.
And it's
I'm gonna
a
eat my lunch.
screenshot, right? So it's not really editable after that. That's the key. So you can tailor these to your heart's content and basically document on top of what that raw. I'm not expecting everyone to get everything they need out of the endpoint Visio, but it's a starting point, right? So I'm expecting people to use that as their foundation. The same with the other tools. It's just a starting point.
Cool.
Yeah, you mentioned the other tools. So you've got the ERD, Flow, PVA as well. So you're kind of building up this. It's quite a considerable library of documentation tools. Are there any other ones? I missed one. ERD, Flow.
Well, not in the documentation. Yeah, so there's those three in documentation. There's I've added a few bits to Tangai's sitemap. I've added visualization of that, put that into Excel, I think. And security groups I've added to the existing tool. I amended the existing tool that was there by Santosh Bhagat. That's been around for a while. I just made that work again effectively. So using Excel or Visio to get at those two things.
Because it's a really incredibly sort of powerful way of having your project constantly up to date with the documentation. Because the problem with documentation is the old adage, isn't it? Is that documentation is out of date immediately it's produced. Yeah, it's like and the thing is, despite that, people still ask for it. It's like, people will say, "Hey, Scott, we need you to document everything." It's like, well, do you really? Are you really going to? When are you actually going to look at that? Because I might refer to it in a couple of months. So if I do that now, in a couple of months, it will definitely be out of date. So a sort of like on-demand generation of documentation is quite an interesting concept. Like almost like sort of self-service. So, well, if you want to see something documented. So, how do you see people using this in the sort of life cycle of the project, or how do you use it yourself on projects?
It is more to do with that snapshot in time, like you said. It is saying, right, okay, this is what we delivered, because everything changes, and if we can prove that this is what we've done, and it gets back to that old waterfall adage of building up all these things and delivering it and dropping it, and Agile is not quite the same, but in essence, it's basically saying, "Ta-da! This is what we've done, and we can go from there." And then show it to people that don't have those tools available to them. So it's putting it into a format that is more digestible by others. You can get, the flow designer, for example, is all very well and good, but it's the same problem as that. If you want to show that to anyone in a format that they understand, or they can tweak, or they can, you can hide bits of it and group things up. You need to get that into a form that's more readily accessible. And Visio being pretty accessible, I know it's not the be-all and the end-all of documentation, but it's certainly one of the standard tools. It just fulfills that little bit of a gap, really. So I use it for that. It's a tool set to ease the pain of other people more than anything. It's all those things that you're going, okay, someone's asked me to do this, and you do it, and you spend a couple of days drawing out those diagrams, etc. Surely that's better time spent elsewhere, especially when you've got hundreds of users across the world doing the same thing. I think it's just making reducing that time to get that information out there.
Yeah, because there was a product. Was it Snapshot? Was it by? Was it? I can't remember who was it. Mitch that did it.
Yep.
That kind of did the whole thing. It was like I don't think it's there anymore. I don't think you can get it. Yeah, but
Stephen Smith said he purchased that. So he theoretically owns the rights for Snapshot. Whether I don't know if he does anything with it, but So
I was looking at it the other day for another thing, but it's the idea of that where there's basically a load of queries and documenting things is probably essential in some terms, but it depends on your technical ability, etc. We would all prefer to go back to the source and look at it, but it's one of those things you want to do it that snapshot in time effectively and give you an easier view.
Yeah. And like you said, the being able to say, this is what's been delivered, even if it's an iteration, even if it's like, even if you are in an agile situation, just saying, well, okay, sprint 5, this is what was delivered in sprint 5, and then sprint 6, oh, look, this is what was delivered. And you can sort of see, there's things of how things have changed and how things have moved. Like data dictionaries, if you always people asking for data dictionaries, and using the Excel metadata, Excel documenter. So it's kind of like all these different XrmToolBox tools. It feels as though they need to sort of like all be brought together somehow, and then because they're all there now. Really, it seems like there's a full complement of. There's the metadata documenter. You've got all your tools as well, and it's pretty much. Is there anything missing? What's the gap that you can't document now in XrmToolBox?
Code
plugins.
Workflows, I think are tricky.
Workflows.
Yeah. That I've not quite worked that out yet. That was over last summer. I spent quite a while trying to work that out and didn't get there. Probably needs a bit more time and a bit more patience. And that's the thing when you get only working at the weekends, etc. It's sort of like 2 or 3 hours here or an hour there. You get to a point you go, oh, not quite. And if I'd have spent an extra half an hour, I would have got that. So that tends to be my way of working. That's why it takes so long to get stuff out from my catalog, etc., as it were.
My way of working is if I spend an extra half an hour, I'll get it, and 3 hours later, I still haven't got it. And then I go take a shower, and I figure it out in the shower. That's usually what happens. So.
Yeah.
Shampooing my hair, like, oh yeah, that's how I do it. And then,
my flow to Visio, I got told off by Jonas, only on a funny side because he had got the UML version and he wanted me to extend that rather than start again. And just my lack of knowledge of what was available in the XrmToolBox, I didn't realize it was there. And he still wants me to port them together. So at some point it'll come up higher up my priority list. And it's just annoying Jonas, to be honest. So, if he'll probably do it before I will.
It's always fun to see who blinks first, huh?
Exactly.
Who's gonna blink first? So, yeah, that's always. I mean, automating documentation is great for 2 reasons. 1, I hate doing documentation. 2, if I'm forced to do it, I'm gonna not get it 100% correct. So not only is it gonna be out of date right away, if it's manual, most likely I'm gonna have an error or I'm gonna miss something right away. Like in the current project, we were trying to go through and figure out, hey, every single time we're resyncing this, we're getting these weird, like sometimes we're not getting things synced over, sometimes we're getting duplicates, and trying to go through and find where all these things are happening each time was very difficult. So, I think a day later we had this quick little tool that would be able to run and export everything out into little files JSON files that would show what each value was, and with a hierarchy, so you could say, oh, this person had these 6 child records and now they've got 5 or then 4, and you can get diff and do all that kind of fun stuff. So I had to that point, but then when we sat in a meeting, I'm like, okay, what's changed? What do you guys need to go look at and see why it's changed? I still couldn't get it from that get diffs to the people that weren't get savvy to say, hey, here you go. And so I ended up writing another program to go and take it from that to a table that was like, all right, here's the ones that are created. Here's the ones that are that were deleted. Here's the ones that are modified, and could spit that out to a table. So now within, when we refresh the database, we run all the sync. I have a complete list of everything that was created new or everything that was deleted within a matter of like 3 minutes, and ones that were modified. And then I still have to go through and manually say what modified with it, why did this change happen, that kind of stuff. But which is down from like days of having to go through all these records and try to figure out what's changed.
Well, that's right. I mean, what's changed is quite often the thing that is most interesting, especially in iterative iterative way. I did much the same actually as you, Daryl, except for I used the XrmToolBox document, the Excel metadata documenter. What's it called? Metadata documenter, I think it is.
Document generator, I think.
Yeah, that's a document generator. Yeah. So, and I just used a script to go and highlight, compare the two Excel spreadsheets basically, so that you could give it to someone and it would just be highlighted. Okay, this is something that's new. This is something that's been deleted. This is something that's been modified. So you've got all the different things in there, with exactly the same kind of idea. But yeah, it's always going to be out of date and prone to errors. So anything we can have like this to make it easier is great. So yeah,
and it's one of those things that is probably just above testing on the priority list, isn't it? Or maybe just below testing. It's the one thing that you get to the end of the project and go, oh. Along with, doing all your test plans, etc. I know in the agile way we shouldn't be doing that, but it's something that always is last minute, and therefore people rush and don't get right, and therefore you get into that cycle of effectively having to redo it all. So yeah, it's just I'm hoping that these things help other people, and we and effectively help them through that pain that I've been through and others have gone through. So
yeah. Well, we just need a documenter for Canvas apps now. Something that can take a screenshot of all the different screens and like navigation between them. And
it's all a bit of JSON though, isn't it? Effectively. So in theory it should all be possible, but
it all gets exported to YAML. You can unpack it to YAML now. We're using the pack PCF unpack. No, pack, not pack PCF, pack Canvas unpack.
But I think it's all, the data's all there. It just takes someone to do the reverse engineering of whatever Microsoft have done effectively. And that's the key. And their priorities are obviously different than documenting something. So I don't think they're ever going to do a lot of these things. So if people are concerned, it's all there. You just have to spend some time getting at it and understanding it.
Yeah. Do you remember back in the day, there was the sort of like the round tripping kind of mechanism with ERDs? You create your ERD in some tool, and then it would generate the database schema, and then you'd make some changes to the database schema, and then it would round trip back to the ERD tool. And it's funny because the pack, Canvas, unpack, and pack, they call it round tripping as well. So it's a sort of like it's a nod to this history of what was going on way back in the days of the 4GLs, and how they all progressed. So yeah, I think this kind of challenge has been around for a very, very long time. How do you maintain a way of having something that human readable form and a machine readable form, and keeping the two in sync as much as possible?
Yeah, I think that's hard, isn't it? And they obviously prioritizing the runtime and everything else that they need to do for obvious reasons. So hopefully, and it's the same with all the community tools, isn't it? That there are things that just don't bubble up the priority list of Microsoft, and therefore that's what the community is there for.
Yeah. I mean, it's like somebody really should create a tool for like editing ribbons, because doing that in XML is really, really painful.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott. Oh, yeah, that's right. No.
Yeah.
We're hoping to get a guest lined up to actually talk more.
Yeah, I was about to say, mate, it's a good
I need to
segue
send out
there.
another email, because we had a little
bit of a hint, a little tantalizing hint there. Who a future guest might be.
Well, Carl, it's a Visio tool. It's a tool to create your Visio diagrams from your BPFs, documentation purposes, and just be able to get that to customers, people that are wanting it, so you're not having to do it, and it's automatic and everything. wonderful. If that's what you need, that is exactly the perfect tool for you, right? So do you see you expanding the tool anymore or doing more with that tool? Or do you see another thing you mentioned you did take a look at workflows and you're like, I don't really know if I'm going to do that to Visio. Do you see yourself doing anything else, building Visio stuff out of the XrmToolBox?
Yeah, I think the workflow is probably the only one that on that list, because of it naturally fits in with the Visio schema. But it is very much, now that I've cracked Visio and I can just copy and paste code from one to the other effectively, it's that bit's easy for me. Comparing when I was doing it in Flow, that was the challenge really. I don't see apart from workflow, I don't think there's anything left. I'm sure Microsoft will be coming out with something that will.
That's a challenge, isn't it? You know that something's going to happen. Data flows, you can Power Query data flows. You could do, I'm sure we can come up with a long list.
Oh, you did have a good T-shirt idea, though. I've cracked Visio. That should be your little T-shirt that you have.
You could be a Visio MVP, maybe.
No, I do. There is a Visio guy who's the Visio MVP, which I regularly steal content from to do what I'm doing. They take it into a totally different level compared to what I do, but yeah, it's based on their great work, effectively.
Yeah. At one point in time, I had my first job out of college. It was horrible. It was I had to figure out licensing ranges for people selling insurance agents in the United States, or all 50 states. And each state has their own rules and regulations. Like this one may be, if your last name is A through L, then it's an even year you have to renew. If it's K through Z, it's a odd year. If you were born this month, it's this. Like each state had a different rule. They changed them every 4 or 5 years, and we are supposed to keep track of all these rules and implement them in code to keep it going forward for forever. And so lots of times our code would not generate the correct dates of when they needed to renew their licenses, which is a major issue. Why are we paying you money to help do this when you're getting it wrong, sort of thing? And I came to the point where, I'm trying to communicate with the business people that know what these rules are, and the code's so horrible. There's no way I can show them code, even if it was great. And it was VB6, horrible code where nothing was in dates because somebody was afraid about dates. So everything was in string dates. February, leap year, February, just like everything, nothing worked that day. And so all this fun steez, right? And at one point in time, I was very close to using Visio to actually draw out the rules about saying, all right, if this happens, then do this. If this happens, and then using that to actually generate the code base for it. And I spent a little bit of time doing it, but I got tasked with something else. But that was the start of, I guess, using Visio for me for being like a low code platform almost. Or ideally, it started off with, hey, if I could just document it for them, give them the Visio. Then I looked at the Visio, I was like, this is too hard to turn this into code that I could then run. So, yeah, and then it goes back to Scott's round tripping there sort of thing, right?
Yeah, Microsoft. So,
interesting.
You can do that, can't you? Visio to Flow. I think I'm not sure how successful it is, but there is that plugin, I think, that does it the wrong way. But yeah, my Visio is always the first thing you do when you get a new job is you get a Visio and make sure that you've got that access to that, because when you start drawing anything that's any slightly technical, then PowerPoint lets you down. You've got to get that in there.
It is rather infuriating, isn't it, when you're joining things together and it's like why can't I have a route this particular connector in that way? Why is it forcing me to do it this way?
I had a major challenge on this last one because of the direction of the connector on these points. I just copied from the Flow tool, and because of it coming from the Flow tool, which is all vertical, the direction of the connector was down, which meant that all my lines sort of went down and then up and then across, even though they were only going horizontal. And I spent weekends upon weekends upon weekends trying to work that out.
Well, when I open up the tool and I look at it, if I look at the tool and I look at it and I see them going sideways, I'm going to really appreciate that, Carl.
Yeah, exactly. But
that's right.
It was just like, why do you need direction of connector. It just doesn't make sense in my head. But obviously there's a reason. But finding that in the XML to create that within the Visio diagram was the challenge after that point. But yeah, so don't just copy code is the lesson there, kids. You got to understand it as well.
Copypasta.
Yeah.
Copypasta? Is that how you pronounce paste as past, or is that just a just a slip there?
It's just a joke. Copypasta, yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So if you have to explain the joke, it's not nearly as funny. I'll do it for you. I'm sorry, Scott.
Clearly.
You said root again, and I had to go like, wait, oh yeah, route. Okay. So we speak the same language. We really don't. It's close.
Well, you said Z earlier, and I just
Z.
Confused. Yeah.
A to Z. I think Z sounds a lot better than Z. Like I kind of wish I had that naturally in my vocabulary.
So you can go back to football if you like, which isn't really football, but
no, exactly. I just can't bring myself to say data as well. I just can't. I can't bring it. I just can't. I literally can't. Even if everyone else in the room or is saying it, I just have to say data, and everyone just sort of sniggers.
Well, that's Star Trek Next Generation for me. Like I say data by default because of data from Star Trek. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably only because of Picard being very English.
Yeah,
it was
even though
Picard.
He's French.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He was born in Le Bar, France. Just so you know.
In Le Bar, really?
Le Bar, France. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Is he related to you?
Jean-Luc? No. But Jean-Luc Picard, not Patrick Stewart, but Jean-Luc Picard was born in Le Bar, France. So.
Yeah, he probably. You're right, Carl. He probably refused to call data anything other than data. It's like, nope. Not
I just thought they did it to make it sound like a different name, but yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe Patrick Stewart's the reason that happened. Forever changed.
I can just imagine
everybody.
him digging his heels in as well and getting just no, I'm not doing that. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
No, there's plenty of things he had to do for that show that I think shows some of his humility in doing things.
I just with my kids actually, I've just started watching the Next Generation from the first episode. Because ultimately I want to watch Picard, so with them, well, the younger two anyway, and so I feel like they need to have. I don't think we're going to get through all 7 series. I think there's like 26 episodes in each series, so it's like
I'm on the last series with my kids actually, so we're getting close. We're getting close.
How long's that taken you then?
It's been a couple of years, but because it's not every night, it's just every now and then. But we do. I did skip the one episode where Dr. Crusher like falls in love with a ghost and something crazy. I don't know. It was that was like the weirdest Star Trek episode ever. And so that one we just I saw that one. I skipped that one. No, we're not watching that one because I'm not explaining this to an 8-year-old. We're going on from here. So.
Yeah, well, interesting. They haven't even questioned so far the fact that it's a narrow screen. It's on a narrow form factor. They just haven't even. So I'm quite pleased about that because I was thinking they'll be like, "Wait, I'm not watching that because it's not."
They're used to ultra narrow. They're used to ultra narrow phone videos that are this way.
That's true.
They don't care about that. There was some cartoon, some video once upon a time that was like, we need to kill people that hold their phones like this for vertical for videos, and because when you look on the TV, it's horrible, and so like I've kind of drilled that into my kids' heads. So now they always do horizontal when they record video, so that way you can watch it better on a phone. So anyway, or on a TV. Funny. Things we can find.
If I told my kids that, they say "Okay, boomer" or something like that, and walk away.
Yeah, I don't have a teenager yet. Is that when that starts? Teenager years, Scott?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, teenagers.
I'm 4.5 months away from that. 5.5 months.
Oh, my son's just learning to drive, Scott. So he's just learning to drive.
Okay.
He's 17, which is Oh, I'm not coming home tonight, Dad, at 2 a.m. That sort of thing. That's the sort of level I'm at. So,
well, my eldest is 19 and he refuses to drive. He's like, I just doesn't want to drive because he's like, don't need to, don't want to be polluting the planet, and all this kind of stuff. It may change when he needs to drive, But, at this point, he's...
There's a really funny video of a dad who dresses up as a crash car dummy, and it's the first time to take his daughter out to learn to drive. That's what he wears, and he gets in the car wearing this complete suit with the helmet on, like it looks like a crash car dummy. It's awesome. He sits there and he's just sitting there, and his daughter looks at him, and I think she swears at him, or she's like super mad. I'm like, really? This is what you're doing?
I like that. I do like that. Definitely.
All right. Carl, is there anything else that we're missing? Anything else that we need to cover that would be amiss if this episode was to end without it?
No, I think we're all good. I think,
there.
I don't think we've. I was just saying before we started about the outage of XrmToolBox last week. So I think you've already covered that. You said so. As long as you're donating to the especially Tangai and the rest of them that support that, I think making sure that's if you were effectively bring Tangai and give him your support. But I do know he worked quite hard voluntarily to get that up because he was getting quite a bit of grief. I think I'm not sure it was that strong, but certainly a lot of people asking him why.
Feedback.
Yes, feedback. Yes, but please donate if you can, because it makes him feel appreciated.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
huge note. Huge note. Well, Carl, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they have something else that they want to have Visiofied, or if they have any suggestions for you?
You know what my Twitter handle is. That's what we opened with. So it's linked 365.
But I want to hear it from you. Our listeners want to hear it from you.
I'm on linked 365 on Twitter, linked365.blog. Carl Cookson everywhere else on LinkedIn and everything else. Just come and find me. Yeah, I'm quite happy to talk about it. Whether I do anything about it is another thing. Is
I always reserve the right to say no.
Yes, exactly. If it piques my interest, or I get nagged like Mark Christie did, then maybe I will. But until that time,
I don't think anyone's going to be able to nag like Mark Christie can nag.
No,
so
that's true. Yeah. He's sending me swag, so I guess that's payment enough. Some free socks. So
I don't know if Gus Gonzalez will nag like him, but he could probably give a fairly decent guilt trip of why you need to do it anyways. So, but yes, he's had at least one or two tools that he's had created because of that. So yes, Mark Smith would be definitely on that nagging script. So, all right. Well, Carl, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your work visiofying things. So when the call comes in to me to say, hey, we need to document our BPFs, I can go, done, and hit a button and get on the rest of things that I actually want to be doing and know that it's done right. So I appreciate that immensely, and appreciate all the other tools you've created for the community as well. Scott, we've heard how our listeners can get hold of Cookie. How can our listeners get a hold of us?
Well, Daryl, it will be my absolute pleasure to tell you. You can email us at cast@xrmtoolbox.com, or you can get us on social media at XrmToolcast. And we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, it's been great talking to you, Carl, fellow Brit as well, which makes it even more special. And you're definitely my Visio MVP. So just so you know, part
of your heart's still in UK. Fellow Brit, lived there for like a year. Jeez.
Quite a while. Been quite a while, hasn't it?
Yep. All right, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
See ya.
This has been the XRM Toolcast with Daryl Labar and Scott Darrell. Produced by Lynn Zawin. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to cast@xrmtoolbox.com, tweet @XrmToolcast, or hit us up on our LinkedIn XrM Toolcast page.